Hello, my name is Denny Shea Martinez, and I would like to share some information about endometriosis, as well as a little bit about my journey. So there's a lot I could share about endometriosis, although the disease itself is still misunderstood, under-researched, underdiagnosed, and the current treatments available are often limited and inaccessible by most. Endometriosis is a complex systematic disease associated with tissue similar to the endometrial lining of the uterus growing outside the uterus that can affect the whole body. It's typically characterized by lesions that are called implants, nodules, or endometriomas. And these can respond to monthly fluctuations of hormones like estrogen and progesterone during the menstrual cycle. Endometriosis is associated with immune and hormonal disruptions. So as endometriosis grows, it can cause inflammation, which can lead to many different symptoms, such as adhesions and scarring, internal bleeding, organ and system dysfunction, neuropathy, fatigue, and infertility. The symptoms and presentation of endometriosis are many, and they vary from person to person. The symptoms I've experienced are chronic and acute flare-ups of pain throughout my body, often in the pelvis, back, abdomen, chest, shoulder, and neck. Deep fatigue, heavy and irregular periods and cramping prior to my first surgery in 2022, headaches, disrupted sleep, gut dysbiosis, and a low tolerance for exercise, as well as pain during and after intimacy. The physical pain can be severe, which can lead to psychological distress. It's a combination that can be debilitating in many ways. So endometriosis affects an estimated of 200 million women worldwide, approximately 1 in 10 women in the US. The diagnosis can take up to 10 years on average. I started experiencing symptoms at the age of 15 and wasn't diagnosed until I was 36. And just a note here that endometriosis, when I use the word women, I'm also speaking to people that have been assigned female at birth, although endometriosis has been found in fetuses as well as people assigned male at birth. The current gold standard of diagnosis and treatment is laparoscopic surgery. There is no official medical degree or standard of care for endometriosis specialists in the United States. Gynecologists who understand the disease can play an important role in the diagnosis and treatment of this condition, although they might be limited to treating disease that is outside the pelvis, known as extrapelvic endo. Access to endometriosis excision surgical specialists can be quite challenging. According to the Endometriosis Foundation of America, there are about 100 endometriosis specialists in the United States who are skilled in the most current treatment options. This means that many who are seeking a skilled surgical specialist will have to leave their home, their state, maybe even their country in order to do so. It's important to recognize that while surgery is not a cure, unfortunately at this time there is no known cure, surgery can dramatically improve the quality of life, and for some, no reoccurrence or persistence of the disease after. Most of these surgeries are minimally invasive, but that doesn't mean that it's not traumatizing. Some will experience loss of an organ or diminished tissue function. There's a brilliant doctor of physical therapy, Wendy Bingham, who is a thoracic endometriosis patient, esteemed researcher, and the founder of Extrapelvic Not Rare, which is an organization that educates and spreads awareness on endometriosis that presents outside the pelvis. Although endometriosis is typically within the pelvis, there's been reports of it in the bowels, the abdomen, diaphragm. These are becoming more and more commonly diagnosed. There are also published reports of endometriosis invading muscles and ligaments, nerves, liver, kidney, gallbladder, heart, lung, bladder, brain, and even the eyes and gums. So many would say endometriosis outside the pelvis is rare. But to give you an idea of how not rare extrapelvic endo is, Dr. Wendy Bingham did the math for those with endometriosis in the respiratory system in 2020. And what she found is 13 million people assigned female at birth reported endometriosis. Of that, 2.4 to 5.6%, which translates to approximately 300,000 to 735,000 people, had endometriosis of the respiratory system. So I can't say this enough. This is not rare. It's just rarely diagnosed. Endometriosis can impact all aspects of someone's life. I've experienced all these myself. So it can interfere with attending school and participating in extracurricular activities or athletics. It can alter career choices or even force someone to give up a career. It can affect finances as one struggles to get a proper diagnosis or treatment and interferes with their ability to work. It can get in the way of relationships with romantic partners, friends, and family members who don't understand the disease and its effects. And it definitely can lower self-esteem. Many people who are uneducated about the disease, including some doctors and healthcare professionals, will dismiss a woman's pain. They'll say it's normal, it's part of being a woman, or it's all in their head. That's simply not true. Multidiscipline approach seems to be the most helpful for managing endometriosis and the symptoms that it causes. I've been spending the last 10 years studying and receiving a lot of these treatments. My lifestyle is really what kept me going and will continue to support me post-recovery for the best possible outcomes of surgery. So you can see this list is long and I even had to shorten it some, but these are some of the ways that we can support our body and mind as we're experiencing endometriosis. And I want to highlight the support of a loving community. So a little bit about my journey with endometriosis, how it was unique for me. As a young teen, I had frequent, terrible, heavy, and sometimes debilitating periods, which were painful and fatiguing. I was active in sports, and it became more and more challenging to participate in the things that I love to do so much. I was also embarrassed to talk to my mom about this, and it just seemed like everyone else was having a period and it was normal, and maybe this is just what it was like and no one was talking about it. But at age 16, I finally shared with my half sister what I was experiencing, and she encouraged my mom to take me to the doctor and at the very least request birth control to control my bleeding and prevent anemia. I spent the next 10 years on birth control. My periods were managed, and for a while, everything seemed to be okay. Around the age of 27, I got engaged and I decided I wanted to stop taking birth control. I wanted to see what my body was like naturally. To my surprise, my period seemed normal for the first 4 to 5 years. I would have odd pains here and there throughout the month, but I assumed it was maybe my active lifestyle or too much fun eating. As the years went on, my period seemed to get heavier and more painful. Musculoskeletal pain and fatigue became my norm. I had a major flare-up brought on by the stress and the grief I experienced at the start of the pandemic. Loss of community, career, and a loved one that I held near and dear to my heart. By late 2020, I experienced chronic pain and was down to 3 good days a month. I was reaching out for help. I saw over a dozen doctors across many different specialties like gynecology, gastroenterology, pain management, nephrology, orthopedics. I was looking for answers and I was looking for help. And over again, I was dismissed and felt let down. There were times that I did start to wonder if it really was just in my head. But I decided to keep researching, and eventually it led me to suspecting endometriosis. And in 2022, I was pretty fed up. And surprisingly, through a Reddit community board for endometriosis, I discovered a specialist in Portland, Oregon, Dr. Shanti Moling, who seemed to know her stuff. I reached out for a consultation. It was the best money I've ever spent. From the moment I met her, I could feel her warmth and her caring. She affirmed and acknowledged my experience. She treated me and my husband with dignity and respect. She heard me. She answered endless amounts of questions that I had. And most importantly, she believed me. My first surgery was a big one. I chose to have a hysterectomy, knowing I might have adenomyosis, often described as a sister condition where the endometrial lining grows into the muscles of the uterus and can be quite painful. I had a large endometrioma removed from my right ovary and was hoping to have a large endometrioma removed from my left ovary, although it was embedded, and unfortunately my left ovary was removed, could not be preserved. I had my gallbladder removed due to an off the charts bile refractory rate, which I didn't even know was a thing. And that contributed to some of my local pain and mild gastritis. Endometriosis was removed from my right ureter, both uterosacral ligaments, throughout my pelvis, peritoneum, and a small lesion on the bottom side of my diaphragm. I spent the year after recovering very slowly. I was pleased when the majority of my pelvic symptoms were resolved. However, there was a persisting pattern of pain in my diaphragm and thoracic region. After consulting with my surgeon, Dr. Shanti Moling, in May of 2024, she confirmed that my symptoms that were lingering were in line with thoracic and diaphragm disease. The surgery I had planned next week, September 17th, 2024, will include thoracic scope to check for endometriosis lesions above my diaphragm and within my thoracic cavity, removal of any lesions in my abdomen and pelvis. I'll also have a small open abdominal incision to check for an abdominal wall endometriosis. What I want people to know is that I'm still fed up with how I was treated and the lack of funding, sound evidence, and research into endometriosis. I'm fed up with the doctors being righteous, that they'd rather gaslight, disregard, and traumatize, recommend subpar treatments rather than saying, I don't know. Most doctors still won't refer out to a private specialist. I want a medical system that is truly motivated and inspired by healthcare, not profits. At times, I get tired of having to be such a fierce advocate in a system that is supposed to help rather than harm. I don't understand how a disease that afflicts 200 million people worldwide is not being funded and researched so we can offer better care and treatment options. I want there to be a global recognition that women matter. I want there to be a world-embracing view of women. I want every person on the planet to remember who nourished them and birthed them into existence. I want everyone suffering with endometriosis to have access to a skilled surgical specialist and an endometriosis expert. I want endometriosis to have its own subspecialty and excision surgery to be a gold standard that insurance pays for. I want everyone suffering with endometriosis to be believed when they reach out for help. I want the most brilliant minds out there to come together and work together, share with one another so those suffering can get the help they deserve. I want to win the lottery so I can fund endless amounts of endometriosis research and offer help to those in need, gaining access to the surgeries that might be necessary for many. I also want people to know that I love that I did not settle with the care I was initially offered. I love that I've taken excellent care of myself. I'm deeply grateful for the surgical team I have in place, and I know and trust that their hands are highly skilled and will be divinely guided during my surgery. I understand that my disease does not define me. I understand I have a wealth of knowledge and experience that will support my healing and best surgical outcomes. And I'm thankful to all of the people who walked alongside me and said yes when I asked for help. All of the people that were open to receiving me just as I am. We've walked and rode and cried and laughed. We made plans to burn the system to the ground, connected with parts of myself that have been long buried, kept my brain from becoming total spaghetti, and created one hell of a surgery plan together. I'm thankful for my understanding, loving, gentle, and compassionate husband who stands by me when I'm afraid and reminds me of who I am when I lose my way. And to my cuddle bugs, Pepper and Fozzie, for unconditional love and laughter. So I thank you all for holding me so tenderly, and listening. And there are references and resources out there that are available. A lot of the information I shared came from endofound.org and extrapelvicnotrare.org. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or need further resources. I'm grateful to be able to share and offer this presentation.